Hi everybody, welcome back to the One Extraordinary channel. My name is Janae and I thank you for taking time to join us for part 2 of the job interview conversation. If you didn't get a chance to check out part 1, I'm going to link the link to that video in the description box below. But in this session, we're going to talk about salary negotiation and just closing out the interview. In part 1, we talked about being prepared for an interview and the types of responses that people would be looking for, hiring managers would be looking for. So, a little about me quickly before we jump into the video. My name is Janae, and I am the founder, owner of One Extraordinary Life. You can visit the website at www.oneextraordinary.com. It is a talent and organization development solutions company, which means I help organizations with their workforce and talent, and I help people with their careers. You can find professional development courses on my website that have continuing education units and personal development units, certificates that you can print out and present them at your organization to say that you are legitimately skilled in the said area that you decided to take a course in. So be sure to check that out. I just want to make sure I am all about helping people get better at their careers, helping organizations become the kind of organization that people want to work with and work in. So that is what it is all about. A little bit more about me on the website if you want to check that out. But let's jump into the video. So there is a viral post going around on LinkedIn, and in the professional community, it happens to be um, quite a topic of conversation. Last night, a couple friends of mine and I were in a group text, and a friend brought it to my attention. I hadn't heard of it yet, but let me just read it. So it's about, this really has to do with salary negotiation, and it's really important. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on why it's important and the technical aspects behind it about job negotiation. But I'm going to first read you the post that is so controversial. Okay, so a hiring manager, I don't know of what department, I don't know if she was in HR, I don't know if she was in a service area or a production area. I'm not sure where she was in the organization, but it was a person who was hiring another person that wrote on LinkedIn this post. I just offered a candidate $85,000 for a job that had a budget of $130,000. I offered her that because that's what she asked for, and I personally don't have the bandwidth to give lessons on salary negotiation. Here's the lesson: always ask for the salary you want, and in parentheses, she writes deserve, all caps, by the way. No matter how large you think it may be, you never know how much money a company has to work with. Hashtag be confident. So, she got ripped, right? She got ripped on the internet. People were shaming her. Why would you post this? I don't know why she would post that. Why would you post that? Anyway, it ended up costing her job. So apparently she worked at the company Honeywell and they terminated her employment. They probably didn't really want to, but they needed to for public image, because it will send a message that they don't have fair hiring practices or they hire people under market value. So they had to do what they had to do. They fired the woman. But I wanted to talk about, the part 3 of the job interview process is about salary negotiation. So since she didn't have the bandwidth to talk about what goes into the back components of a salary negotiation, I'm going to talk to you about what goes into understanding salary. So she says hashtag be confident. And while that might be true that you need to be confident and ask what you deserve, I say hashtag be informed. You need to be informed about why you're asking for the salary you asked for. You can hashtag be confident and ask for some exorbitant salary and not be positioned well to have asked for that salary. Just because you felt confident and you feel like you deserve it, she's saying ask for it because you feel like you deserve it. Ask for it if you deserve it, but be informed about what you are asking for. So, I'm going to give you some behind the scenes little HR secrets and details about how jobs are priced so that you are informed about what you should be asking for or why it is the way it is. So, a lot of the videos that I'll come to you about have to talk about the labor market. So there are people who talk about, the financial markets, stocks. People talk about, other types of markets. The automobile industry and the automobile market or the housing market. I talk about the labor market, human resources and the labor market. So when you're talking about what's going on in the labor market right now, there's the great resignation that's happening. There are many people, based on COVID being the catalyst for people leaving organizations and shaking things up. It means that there are a lot of organizations that are hiring for talent right now. And while that may be bad for organizations, that is not bad for you, especially if you are looking for a new role. So I have been in conversation over the last couple of months with the people who are newer to organizations or newer to looking for jobs, and they're trying to figure out the job interview process. But more than that, people who have been in the same roles or at the same company for 10 years, 20 years plus, and they have not had an interview with anybody in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, or even the last 20 years. They might have gotten a job and moved to another position without a real in-depth interview. They've never interviewed for anything outside of the company that they've worked for. So all of this feels just as brand new to them as they were, 18 years old entering the job market. So I wanted to do this series. I'm inspired by some conversations I've been having with people professionally, and I'm inspired to do the salary negotiation, of course, because that's a part of the job interview. But this post, I was like, oh my goodness. She says, be confident. Okay, so let's get into it. What goes into understanding how a job is priced? What do they do in human resources to price a job? So if you work for a large organization, you likely have a human resources department that has many components to it. You have a strategy part of HR that handles a lot of the um, the the planning of what you need to do, going out and having partnerships with leaders and doing learning and training and development and organization development and change management. A lot of that is on the strategic arm of the human resources department. You have the operations part of the human resources department, and that's like handling the leaves of absence, the Americans with Disability Acts, the ADA accommodations. Oh, I need something on my screen because I can't see well. I need a chair that's more ergonomical, an ergonomic accommodation. So there are these different components. Large organizations will also have a benefits and compensation department, and they will even have like an executive compensation department. So in the compensation department, that is where jobs get priced. So every job has been a job that has been new to the market at some point. If let's say I am a hiring manager and I want to add to my staff. I have 8 people that are on my staff, and I want to add 2 more people to my staff so I can have 10 people who report to me. So I do, and this is mostly the process. Some people might call it a little bit, something a little different, but the process mostly that I'm familiar with is you're going to create a job requisition. So that means you're going to fill out some paperwork about the job, about what the job is responsible for. You fill out all of the details of the job, and then you send the job to compensation and benefits for them to price the job. Here's where I say be informed. So you don't just burst out because you're confident and say, I want $130,000, but the job is actually worth $85,000. Or you don't sell yourself short and say, I want $85,000, but you really deserve or could get $130,000, depending on how it's priced. Okay. So pretty much factor number one is how large is the organization and how much money does the organization make? How large is the job? What is expected in the job? So if let's say if this is a job that's worth $85,000, it likely is a manager job, and it may have some direct reports reporting into it, or it could be a job that they call individual contributor, where a person is responsible for managing a function but don't have people reporting up through them. Either way, it's very likely at that salary that it is a manager title job. Okay, so if it's a manager title job, that means there are certain elements that are going to go into pricing it, and it's going to be how large is our organization. So if it's a large organization and they have the bandwidth to want good, solid talent, they will put a little bit more in their budget to be able to attract that talent. They can afford to pay a little bit more. So, so one of the factors in a compensation market analysis is how how large is the organization and what kind of money does that organization gross? What how much money do they bring in? The geographic location might actually be number one, but it's a real top component. So if that, let's say that position was an operations manager. If you have an operations manager in New York City, or an operations manager in Charleston, South Carolina, or an operations manager in Houston, Texas, or an operations manager in, you know, San Francisco, California, let's say North Dakota or Wisconsin, wherever you think about that, all of those places give you different geographic pictures in your mind about where they're located. And because of that, there's different market value. So, cost of living in those areas is a big part of how a company is going to determine, um, based on geographic location, how much a position needs to pay. It has to be competitive enough to bring talent to be able to work there. People need to be able to afford to live in the area that they work in or relatively close to it. So, at least within an hour or so. So people will, so pricing the job based on geographic location, you're definitely going to have this, you may have the same exact job description for the same exact company, but one job is in Wisconsin and the other job is in New York City, or it's in, Houston, Texas, right? Or Atlanta, Georgia. Those metropolitan area jobs are going to pay more than the small rural locations are going to pay because the cost of living is going to be different. The inflation and all that, all of those factors are going to be different in, depending on the area that you're in. So the labor market, the revenue that comes into that labor market or into that organization are two top factors for how the job is going to be priced. Another factor could be the span of control. So what is the span of control? It means if it's a manager, how many people will report to that position? So if the span of control for a role like that was 10 people, it may pay one salary. If the span of control is, 100 people, I mean, I've dealt with managers who had a span of control of like 200 people. Um, the pay is going to be different than the span of control for 10 people because it's going to be more intense. The skill set might be different, or require something a little bit different. So the span of control, how many people report to it? If it's a non-people reporting position, again, an individual contributor or a functional manager, that may be a different pay scale than someone who has direct reports. Is it bonus eligible? So a lot of times, if the position is a role that's directly connected to a revenue generating department, meaning you are in a sales department or you may be in operations and you do something that directly contributes to the profit or loss of the company, those positions may be bonus eligible. I've seen positions that are 30% bonus eligible, 30% of your base for each quarter. So each quarter you have an opportunity to earn 30% of your base salary. Depends on the job, depends on the industry. Um, you can have a position that has a sign-on bonus only. So it's just a sign-on bonus, a one-time sign-on bonus. There are positions that have all employee incentive bonuses. So at the end of the year, when all of the tallies are done, was the company on track or not on track? So do you get a bonus because that is a year that the company can pay everybody a bonus? Or it could be, just certain departments get bonuses, or the position is bonus eligible. So that may go into making up what the compensation is. So is the position bonus eligible? Why is it bonus eligible? Is it bonus eligible based on performance? So if you hit all of the targets and all of the goals of your position, do you get a certain amount of bonus for your division or your department or your teamwork versus an all employee incentive? So there are some companies that may pay an all employee incentive plus your department or your division and your role may have a performance incentive bonus. So jobs will be priced based on that. Um, they are also priced based on industry. So let's say there is a title called operations manager, and operations manager in the same geographic location, let's call it a metropolitan location, let's call it New York, or let's call it Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, New York, or Atlanta, Georgia. So let's take those two metropolitan areas and say that the job is operations manager, but one is for a large construction company, one is for a large banking company, and the other one is for a small medical firm. Okay, so it's very likely that there may be similar pay for the job that is priced for the large banking company, the large financial institution, and the large construction company or construction institution, but the same exact job that calls for a very similar skill set, but a different knowledge base because of the field, the industry. It's medical industry versus banking versus construction, but has similar education requirements. That medical firm is likely going to pay less because it's a smaller revenue generating firm. It doesn't have as many people reporting to it. The volume and responsibility is not as intense as some of the larger firms. So even if it's in the same geographic location with the same exact title, but slightly different requirement bases for the knowledge and experiences, it could still be priced very differently. So this young lady could very well have come from a company that was small. And small companies are really good for this, squeezing all of the productivity out of somebody that they can for as cheaply as possible because they don't really have any more revenue or money to pay. So you've done all of these things, you have all of this experience, and you just might be titled like supervisor, but you do all of these things. So now it's the great resignation. You're perusing on the internet, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Indeed, you're on Career Builder, you're on Monster, wherever you are looking for a job, right? Some job board, or somebody taps you to tell you about an opportunity. You go on and research it and you go, oh my gosh, this is literally what I do, but here they call it a manager. You don't know how many people I've talked to over the years of my career and have seen it where they call a position, it's called in the company that they're in something like a specialist or something like a supervisor or a lead. And in another position, it's called a director. And you're like, this is what I do, literally what I do, but they call it a director over there. So nomenclature between companies is not always similar. You work for a small firm, they may call it a certain role. You work for a large firm and they have you doing a little bit less with a bigger title. Don't let titles intimidate you. Apply for jobs. If you look at the job description, you know you can do it. You have the experience, but you're like, they're not going to hire me because of the title. It is very, very common to be very qualified for positions that may have a a manager level title or director level title or senior level, whatever, and you've done it in another organization and you're really good at it, but that wasn't at all what it was called. It was called consultant for you, whatever the case is. Anyway, the point is, don't let the title scare you. But it could have been for this young lady that she was called supervisor somewhere else, did a job, was paid $75,000, saw the job be called manager, had no idea that the job had a budget up to 130,000 because it's a larger company. Honeywell is a large national company. She could have been working for a small little regional company making $75,000, called a supervisor, and then go to Honeywell saying, "Oh my gosh, that's a manager's job. I know how to do this. This is what I've been doing for the last 6 years. I'm applying for that job." And she was confident. And when they said, "Well, how much do you think you would be looking for this role?" She's like, "Listen, I mean, I was making 68. I was making 70. So now I'm going to ask for 85 confidently because I know I'm worth 85. What did that have to do with her confidence? She just wasn't informed. She didn't know that she needed to ask for more money, that there was a budget of $130,000. So I have a little one that's trying to get my attention. But wait, honey, because mommy's making a video, okay? Okay, so can you go back over? You want to just wave and say hi really quick? Okay. So you want to go back over? Thank you, darling. I'll come get you in a minute. That's my little heart. Anyway, so what does that have to do? What does that have to do with anything? That she wasn't confident enough. She just wasn't informed. She could have felt uber confident. She just came from making $68,000 doing the same job. So she asked for 85 and she's like, I'm about to blow it out the water. I can do this for $85,000. She could have just rolled over and been in heaven to know that it was 40. She could have got $45,000 more. Had nothing to do with her confidence, but the fact that she wasn't informed of the factors that go into actually pricing a job. So when you are thinking about salary negotiations, you should ask about what the job band is, what the job range is. What is the range of compensation for this role? Is the compensation um, is the compensation going to be from what range to what range? You know, tell me a little bit about your job range. Now, people will try to jump in really quick and ask you what you want because they want you to sort of lock yourself into a number without them revealing how much money they have in their hands. And you can't be mad at the fact that people do that. I mean, everybody's trying to get the best deal for them, so they're trying to save money. But you do really have to consider that you should be a little informed. So look up, and salary.com is a great resource to look up, like, you know, you can put in some basic information about the job market, the title, and it'll give you back some sort of range of what you could expect for the role. Look up, you know, compensation markets, the job market, the salary market for your industry. You can go on Department of Labor Statistics.gov, BLS.gov, and you can get some information from there. And, you know, that will help you understand a bit about how you need to negotiate for salary so that you are informed. It has nothing really to do with your confidence. If you were making $20,000 less than that, you come in really confident asking for $20,000 more. And for somebody to come online and professionally say that you weren't confident enough, and that's the reason why, it's just that you weren't informed. So it's really important for job negotiation to know that there's a salary range. And if they ask you first, be prepared to give a number that is on the higher part of that range. So if, you know, a resource, Department of Labor, you know, the BLS.gov, it's the Department of Labor and Statistics. So you can Google search that, the Department of Labor Statistics, and look up salary ranges. You can look salary.com. I'm sure LinkedIn has a feature as well. I'll do some research and see if I can put some links in the description box for you of some resources to help you figure out what the job range would be. You enter in some information so that they can help you get an understanding. Because if somebody asks you the question first, you know, you kind of get stuck like, you know, I don't want to shortchange myself. But I would say that in this open job market now, I would say that if somebody says, you know, what are you looking for this role? I would ask some questions. I would ask them, you know, what's the range for this role? I'd like to know. And, you know, I don't want to sell myself short. You know, based on my education, my experience, I want to make sure that I'm getting as top of the range as I possibly can. So know there's a lower part of the range, which usually means you don't have all of the qualifications necessary. So know whether or not you need the certain kinds of credentials that they're asking for, education and experience. If you have what the job is looking for, plus the experience, the credentials plus the experience, then you know that you are negotiating for the higher part of the salary range. You have the experience plus the credentials. That's the higher part of the salary range. You have some experience and you're kind of taking a shot in the dark, but you might be a year and a half away from finishing a degree, or you're in process with a certain certification, but you're going to apply now. You do not have all of the credentials necessary for the role. Therefore, you might look for the middle part of the salary range. I don't know why anybody would go for the lower part of the salary range. And I've had conversations with many hiring managers over the years that don't like to hire people at the lowest part of the salary range because they're kind of new and they don't necessarily they may take they're not ready for the role yet. Some people are patient enough to develop that, and some people are not, or they feel like they just might not completely be ready for the role. So most of the time you need to be at the middle of the salary range or above this or at the higher end of the salary range. So make sure that you are informed when you are going in for a salary negotiation, and ask about the total rewards package. And I will come back with a little bit of the total rewards package because I have some business to attend to. But thank you for tuning in. I'll come back with another part of the total compensation package when it comes to salary negotiation and understanding how jobs are priced. But thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you here again soon. Have a good one.